here. Thank you for watching or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. I'm super excited that you have come back to talk about life, leadership, and legacy. Today is going to be really, really special because today I have some very, very special guests on the podcast and vlog today. I've assembled a great group of great young Black people who are professionals, who are doing some great things. And so today I'd like to welcome to the podcast and vlog, my friend Darrell Robinson, Jemonda Roy, Dr. LaTanya Moore, Jamia Newsome, and my boy Mychal Winters. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for giving me your time. So we're going to jump right in. The first question I have for actually all of you, because I think this is extremely important, is how are you all doing? You know, we just came out of a break. We just came out of Christmas break. And when this episode comes out, it's going to be during Black History Month. So we just came on a break, and so we're kind of getting into the new year and getting back into the flow. So how is everybody doing personally? I want to start with you, Jemonda.
So I'm okay. I'm making it. If I can be transparent, I actually have some symptoms of COVID. But I'm making it today. I tested negative yesterday, but we're gonna go back Monday and see. So we're gonna see. I'm an admissions counselor, so I have to deal at a PWI at that. So I have to deal with the bureaucracy of that, and that can kind of get frustrating. But I'm just thankful that I made it into this new year, and I'm just gonna keep pushing, to see how this year progresses.
Mychal?
Yes, sir, man. First of all, I want to start by saying thank you for including me in on this panel today. I feel honored and just privileged to be a part of this conversation with, so many esteemed young African American professionals. So salute to you and everybody on the call. But yeah, just to check in, I'm thankful. One thing that I learned in the previous year was just to have gratitude for the basics. And so right now, I'm starting this year off being thankful, being grateful for where I am, what I have, and what I'm doing, and just being open and optimistic to, how everything unfolds while staying focused and continuing to work on the goals at hand.
Dr. Moore?
Yes, yes. So I am doing great. I started the year off in an interesting and very rocky time, but I'll say so. As I ended 2020, I spent a lot of time helping people build and strengthen their relationship with God, and I had a prayer challenge at the end of the year. I had hundreds of people signed up. And on January 1, some things transitioned in my life quickly. I mean, suddenly, I mean, swiftly. And I was like, okay, God, like, what are you doing? And I went back to the prayers that I had prayed, and I realized, like, whoa, those prayers that just manifested. So I cried about it because it wasn't anything good, y'all. It was him removing some things, but I feel like I'm on the right track and I'm realigned, and he had to go ahead and remove those things for me to get, in the right place. So I'm good.
Darrell?
Yeah, Lisa, thanks for having me on. If I can be honest, you know, the weight of COVID didn't really hit me until the holidays. I was so busy last year, and God, was good and blessed me in business, to a point where it didn't even slow down, but it picked up. But I took some time off, about 2 weeks, for the Christmas holidays, and it's when it really started to hit me, the weight of it. And so, coming into 2021, just practicing more acceptance, more mindfulness, and more gratefulness, and taking it day by day, hoping sometime soon we get through it and can return to life as we knew it, and we won't, but in some sense.
Jamia?
Yeah, I would say I'm doing well. I would say my spirit is healthy. My body is healthy. My heart is hopeful. My mind is a little bit busy. There's a lot of processing I've been doing in this season with everything going on. But I think my soul is anchored. And to echo the same sentiments of Darrell, I feel aligned. And so I'm very optimistic.
Great, that's good to hear. So, we're going to talk a little bit about you all professionally. I think all of you are highly educated people, and I really respect you and admire you for that. As somebody who's getting their master's right now, it's like, you know, I get a little bit upset every time I talk to Jemonda. I'm like, your tail got two masters. I don't like, what are we doing now? I mean, Lord have mercy. But just really realizing that we're all trying to go into a career and have a path in which we are creating space for ourselves. So my first question I want to ask specifically to Darrell and Dr. Moore and Mychal. How are you balancing your level of expertise and value in your current job pursuits? Like, how are you navigating that?
Uh, you know, uh, that's tough, Lee, if I'm honest. I've been in business for myself full time since August of 2018, and it has been a long road. Not only in building the business, but also building the relationship. Because what I found is as a I've been doing what I do uh, for almost 15 years, and I'm well versed in what I do. I started, way before I went to college. I studied what I do, but I found that sometimes it's harder to get, some of the older generation that I serve to trust me as a young person, and so um, it's been a rough road trying not to compromise my value in light of the fact that it's a bit harder to gain trust. What I did a lot of last year in 2020 was compromise, trying to meet certain organizations, certain individuals in the middle. But what I said that I'm going to commit to in 2021 is no compromise. Either I know my worth, either you go pay what I charge, you go meet me here, or you're not the client for me. And God bless you. Amen.
Dr. Moore?
I think that's hilarious that all of us are over here like, period. That's it. um, it's interesting. So I have a 9 to 5, and at my 9 to 5, I train pediatricians, other doctors, so MDs, and I train behavioral health professionals on how to implement therapeutic programs, right? So I have this career that I'm still going for, and I also have a side business, Spirituality LLC. And what I've noticed is that there are things that complement one another in both of those realms, right? So I'm always trying to take things from my 9 to 5, those skill sets and things that I've built, and use those in my side business and vice versa. But what I've realized now about just my expertise is that it's just that it's my expertise. And I have to show up with my expertise despite whoever's in the room. And it's interesting because when I am at work, I am the only Black female at my job. Well, I'm the only Black person at my job. I work on a team of 30, and often I'm misunderstood. And so I've gotten in this place where I am just showing up as my expert self, no apologies about it, because I feel confident doing that in my side business. So I'm going to be confident doing that at work every day. So,
Mike?
Yes, sir. So just to chime in, I feel like in this season, I maintain a level of expertise and value um, while pursuing, other career goals. Just basically focusing on the work that's at hand while I continuously build any ideas or plans that I have. For example, as an educator, I work with diverse groups of scholars every day, and I know that as an educator, what I provide for them during the school hours is not nearly enough to address their deepest needs. And so, as a business owner and as a writer, I seek opportunities to find, how can I fulfill those needs and still, make myself relevant to the work that I'm already doing, if that makes sense.
I think you're bringing up some good points that 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 relationship between trying to build out what you are wanting to pursue, and then make sure you're you're in your career, you're doing your work, you're trying to make the money. I think that's something that I think we all, everybody, no matter if they're black or white or whatever, we're dealing with building a career and building passion. There's always, sometimes they can be competing interests, but a lot of times is, and I think it's really great what all of you said, you figured out how to take your passion and bring it into your career and your work so that you can be the most productive and successful and be the most fulfilled. I think everyone wants to be fulfilled in their career, right? And so when you get an opportunity to feel fulfillment, that's a great thing. So Jamia and Jay, I want to ask you all about, because you all work in the educational space, but anybody can jump in on this question. But how are you all navigating, in some ways, being the only Black voice or a diverse Black voice, even among our own people? How are you all navigating that? And Jay, I'm gonna let you go first because the face you made.
So, um, you guys may not know me, but Lee knows me, and he knows that I'm very um outspoken on Black issues. Um, so recently I applied for the diversity of coordinator position at the University of Mississippi. Um, I knew sometimes you just know the work that you do. And when you're qualified for a job, like I knew that I was qualified for this job. Ole Miss had never had a diversity training in the Office of Admissions until I had come. So, I was just like, I know I'm a good fit for this position, but I was not hired for the position. And I realized that the decision was very political. They did not want my voice in that position. And it was just like, it's kind of funny because it's a diversity position. Um, and so it's definitely a challenge navigating my voice, especially working at a predominantly white institution such as Ole Miss. There's a lot in the name in itself. Um, what I've learned to do is simply take personal days. Um, I have I am very unapologetic about who I am and what I stand for. And I realized that it's interesting. I had to write that down, what you just said, Drew. I call Lee Drew. What you said
It's
about
my
bringing
nickname.
your passion into your career, because I was just like, in order for me to really fulfill this position, I have to be who I am. I cannot um, accommodate to their needs. I have to be who I am, not only for myself, but before the students that I'm recruiting. It'll hurt them and it'll hurt me. And so just really learning how to navigate my voice, being myself, and I'm going to take this out of this, take what you said out of this discussion today, bringing my passion into my career, really expanding my voice and expanding what I stand for into this position.
Jamia?
That's so good, Jay. Um, so the question was, how do I navigate being the Black voice, right? Um, and it's interesting. First of all, I have to listen. I have to reflect, and really kind of center myself and ask myself, how am I showing up? Like what it is, like what am I thinking? What am I feeling? How do I feel? Um, and then begin to navigate which of the voices I use, um, as a woman, as a Black person, as a leader, um, as a girl who's experienced a lot of racial trauma in this country, and so figuring out who gets to speak, and discerning at what time do they speak and what do they say, in a moment, I think has really been I would say fun. getting to determine like who gets to speak, but also a little difficult, because sometimes the girl in me just wants to yell, and when you're leading a group of people, sometimes uh, that has more, negative implications. It has implications, and whether people perceive them as positive or negative is, you know, it's how they were socialized. But I think I do a lot of listening um, first, and then I try to respond from a place of centeredness as much as possible, in order to make sure that I'm leading in a way that I want to lead. So.
I, I, I mean, that's a great response. I and one thing I want to say about that is I think you all have made it very clear that like it is like you said, Jamia, centering yourself in who you want to be and being firm about that. Because I think that a lot of people really struggle with trying to navigate that, especially because of all of us are working in very different places, right? Very different aspects. There's a lot of nuance that goes on. In the last episode, when I was talking to the other group of professionals, they were saying to me that one of the problems that I think a lot of us struggle with is figuring out, like you said, Jamia, who is going to show up in that conversation. Because there's a part of us that is like, hey, you might meet this other guy today because you might meet that kid from West Jackson today because for some reason you're not getting it. And we have to do that in order for people to understand. But I think that gets to something that I love what you all said is that owning moments, and I think that's extremely important. So I have this question next. I'm not going to prolong the time, and anybody can actually jump in on this particular question. And it's more specific about how career advancement, because I think one thing that all of us want to experience in our own lives is feeling that we can move forward in our careers. And I think one of the interesting things about this time that we live in is the market is changing so much because of what's happening because of COVID, right? There are new jobs that are being created. There are new opportunities that are being created. So anybody can jump in on this. So what are some of the steps that you are personally taking um, to position yourself for upcoming jobs or even in your current career to move forward?
So I'll hop in here, Lee. I have a saying, and I wish I could remember what preacher I got this from years ago. But one of my mantras is that life moves at the speed of relationships. And so what I've done over time is train myself to become more of a networker. And I actually remember having a conversation with somebody, Lee, my background in church, and they were saying, God is going, God to raise you up. You ain't got a network and all that good stuff. And I said, well, amen. But I believe God strategically positions people. And so beyond, making sure that I do my due diligence and ensuring that I'm the best at my craft and that I'm employable and that I really have something to offer, I really try to seek, God on where He would have me to be, who He would have me connected to. Um, testimony from last year, and I'll be quiet. I told somebody I had my best year yet in revenue, way more than I anticipated making last year, and I spent not one advertising dollar. And some people may say that's not a sustainable model, and I get that from a business sense, but I believe it's a testimony of God positioning me where I need to be. As a matter of fact, Jay talked about on the last question being unapologetic. One of my largest clients is a white firm, and when George Floyd died last year, uh, everybody was trying to get messaging out and things like that, and they picked up the phone and they called me and said, Darrell, they said, we just don't know what to do. We don't know what to say, and we need you to help us say something because we know we need to say something. And I just think God, positions you. And so that's just what I've been on, the past couple of years, just making sure I'm in the right place to be a vessel. And then also working on my technical skills as well.
I'll say amen to that, because I'm always in a posture and position with God where I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? Is this a yes? Is this a no? What direction am I going? I'll say too, this is an interesting question for me because I just turned down a promotion at my 9 to 5. Yep, I know, unbelievable. But I was waiting on them to give me the number, and I knew what number I wanted. And if you couldn't live up to that number, I was not going to sacrifice my time for that number. And so we'll see what happens on Monday. But I say all that to say they acted like it was a privilege for me. Like it's a privilege for you that we're trying to promote you. And I'm like, no, it's a privilege for you that I'm at this organization because of my skill set and my value. And so I had to flip that thing around and really show up confidently because they're like, oh, well, this is how much. I'm like, not enough. Sorry, I'm going to stay right here in this position until you can come to me with my value. And until then, I'll sit right here. Thanks. Yeah.
I would like to hop in, just kind of to follow up with what Dr. Moore said. Realizing your worth and realizing your value puts you in a position to where you really have the power determining the outcome of your situation. So for me, my pursuit of education, after I got my bachelor's, I got my master's. I really still wasn't doing the work that I wanted to do. I continued to pursue education. I got my specialist degree, still didn't get the opportunities that I wanted. Now working on my doctoral program. So I'm not doing all of that to uh, get a position per se, but what I've learned along the journey is that the knowledge and experience and the connections that I have, like what Mr. Robinson was saying, the power of relationships, the relationships and resources that I have in education have empowered me to create opportunities for myself. So right now, I'm currently writing a book and a curriculum, and the way that I pattern it, the way that I model it, is to kind of set me up for success in the future in the long run. Because in the field that I'm in, I know what the expected outlook will be in 3 to 5 years. So since I'm on the front lines, okay, I can build over here strategically. I have the knowledge, I have the base. So let me go ahead and make myself, more marketable and available. So I think that's another benefit of being educated. You know how to create resources and opportunities for yourself and for others around you.
Yeah, that's a great response. Dr. Moore, I almost threw something at you because that's real. I Knowing your worth is extremely important for any professional, no matter who they are, because you people will only get, like Mike said, people will only give you what they think that you're worth, and if you tell them your worth, they'll start to respect what you're saying to them. So I think that that's a lesson for everybody to get. That's so good. I'm gonna push a little bit further with the conversation. My next question, and I think everybody can answer this question because I think this is a really good question. How has organizations or clubs or associations played a role in your career, or relationships have played a role in your career? Some of you have already, mentioned that some of the relationships that you have of cross career advancement. Some of y'all are Greek on this conversation, so I know that may or may not have played a role in your career. I got a few alphas on here and a delta. I don't know about anybody else, but how has that played into your career advancement, and how you have how have you leveraged those relationships, whether it's your church or whatever, to actually move forward, and the relationships to move forward in your career?
Um,
Go for
you,
it.
you okay. I The relationships have definitely played a role in my career, and as far did I freeze up? As far as me moving into higher education, and y'all were just talking about, like, trusting. For me, really trusting God is one of the best things that I could have done as far as moving into the position that I'm in now. So when I finished with my MFA last spring, I was working as a mentor for the Ole Miss First Scholarship Program. And so that's where I found my passion in higher education. And then I just started teaching because my line sisters they were in North Panola School District, started teaching. I taught for 28 days, y'all. It wasn't my thing. I was like, you know what, God, and I was very stressed out. I have never been that stressed out in my life. I was like, God, I'm gonna trust you, but I got to quit. So I gotta quit. So I quit that job, and thankfully, this is where relationships come in. One of my professors, who was also my friend at Ole Miss, he was like, I know a team at UCLA, like they're looking for, a team member for this project. And so I was like, I need some money, help me out. And so I am also I'm a research consultant for UCLA, where we work on the computer science equity project. And so I told him, I was like, I'm at North Panola right now. I hate it. Like, I need some help. And so actually, I got hired with UCLA, and we did our research in North Panola School District. So I was like, just thanking God for that. And now I ended up applying to Ole Miss as an admissions counselor, and I ended up having both of those jobs. And combined, I was like, well, Lord, I'm doing pretty good financially. And so it was just like, thank you, because those steps, it just trusting Him and moving in those relationships that I created, like in graduate school, led me there. And even now, as an admissions counselor, I'm talking to counselors and principals and growing these relationships with them at these schools. And it's just like, if things don't work out, because I know my worth, again, we know our worth. If things don't work out with Ole Miss, they're like, we would love for you to come be, a diversity coordinator at some of these private schools. And JA and Jackson Prep and Heritage Academy have been reaching out to me. And I'm just like, I'm so thankful for the relationships that I have, like I because my job right now, like, I'm thankful for my job, but I appreciate more what I'm doing. That's the most important thing. You have to love your job. And so relationships have definitely played a role in my career, and I'm definitely, can y'all hear me? And yes, relationships have played a major role in my career, and I definitely thank God and trust God in every step that I made.
Okay. I'm like, Darrell. So I definitely think that relationships are critical. I remember being a teacher and just remembering leading from where I sat. You don't need a position, you don't need a title, you don't need anything to lead. Leadership is influence. And how are you, maximizing your capacity where you are, standing where your feet are, and not like hoping to be anywhere different, or knowing that you need, some type of person to bestow power upon you to be empowered. That's not what, empowerment is. And so really understanding your strengths are critical to being able to lead from where you sit. And I think that community is really, really big. Who you surround yourself with. When I was a teacher, I had a lot of my friends were already assistant principals, CEOs, EDs, and I didn't even think about that, but God was already, aligning me to where I was going, and I didn't even have a clue. So it's extremely important to be intentional around your community and who you put around you and who's in your space and who's in your face. When I think also about my current community, I'm wanting to move into more entrepreneurship. And so, trying to be intentional about joining, clubs or joining organizations that, have those people inside, but also personally, surrounding yourself with encouraging people who are going to tell you your strengths, because sometimes people can see what you can't see. And so when you have a best friend that's saying, girl, you are bomb at this, you be like, oh, for real? And then you actually, it opens your eyes so you can see yourself differently. That is also really, really helpful. And I would say, lastly, to Jay's point, your relationship with God is the most important relationship that you could ever, cultivate. Spending time with Him and allowing Him to speak to you. He will direct you. And all of the work that you're doing for yourself so hard, He'll be able to speak call this person, add this person, go onto this platform at this time, and you will hear the right person talking, you connect with them. And so it just makes the process that more fluid and smooth when you are able to really, connect with him and hear his voice.
Uh, you can go, Daryl.
Yeah, I was just gonna add. First of all, shout out to my good brother, brother Winters. Lee, you didn't tell me I had a frat brother on the call, but no, just like I said, life moves at the speed of relationships, and I think God is so strategic. For me, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated has been a huge source of contracts, and just as much as it's a fraternity, it's very much a network. I got brothers, all across the country and around the world, and some of my largest projects actually came through connections that I had with my fraternity. And so I think, we have to be able to leverage the relationships that we have, especially in Black organizations. I'm a big believer in organizing, Black folks to come together around common issues, common topics, and common principles to figure out, how we can better each other. I'm much more likely to refer, if I hear about a project, to refer somebody in my network because, I've dealt with you, I know you. And so I think it's important to make sure that we pay attention to the associations and connections we have, because I mean it could take us from here to here quick.
Yeah, that's great stuff. That's great stuff. So, I'm just gonna move the conversation a little bit further. I think all of you have been giving some really, really good information. I think when people listen and or watch this episode, they will be encouraged in so many ways. So, the next question I have is actually for you, Dr. Moore. So, how have you seen? So, you explained to me a little bit earlier, kind of the role that you are playing, particularly in the therapist space, as you said earlier, being the only Black person within your organization. But how are you seeing the work you're doing as it relates to empowering doctors and even therapists to really do a lot of effective work as it relates to making therapy more practical for people? And how are you seeing more Black professionals or just Black people actually get access and actually go to therapy, especially in this day and time with all the things that's going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, at my current position, I train a lot of people, hundreds of people a week, and I find that it's so interesting. Most of them are white. I will say that. But what I find is that we find each other, okay, and we are always connecting with one another, and we want authenticity, right? And so if there is, a person of color at my training, more than likely they are like sending me a LinkedIn request or, sending me a little private chat. And so I'm like, hey, good to connect with you, and those are the people who, become lifelong, connections as well. So I found that, although I don't necessarily train a diverse group of people, but the people who I do train who are, people of color, normally connect with me on a deeper level, just because we're always, again, looking for one another. I would say during this time, though, it's so interesting because God pulled me out of doing one-on-one therapy and had me do more organizational work. And all 2020, I was like, oh God, I want to get back in, everybody needs me right now, thinking I was a superhero. And I had so many inquiries. And what I realize right now is that, we want to connect with us, all of the inquiries that I've had through Psychology Today and, people reaching out to me are all Black women, maybe two Black males, right? We're looking for similar faces. We're looking for someone who can understand. And what has happened is the outlook on therapy has changed. And I'm so grateful for that, because we used to think, now that's taboo, or something has to be wrong with you, or, as my grandma would say, now you shouldn't go see a shrink. But really, that has changed. And so, especially for the millennial generation. So I'm so proud, of us. Because we are reaching out, we are going to therapy, and we're normalizing the fact that nothing has to be wrong with you, but just having someone to, really process. We all have trauma. We've all experienced something, right? And so having that opportunity to process has been so good. I work with a lot of professionals, and I will say I've seen an uptick in therapeutic services for sure.
Wow, that's so
I
good.
wanna
Uh,
I was gonna say, let me chime in. First of all, let me just say I love all y'all already. Um, I'm glad I'm muted because I'm over here like, yes, like okay, period. Um, but you stated, yeah, I'm a fool. I just want y'all to know. You stated that we want to connect with us, and I felt that so deeply because, like, even though like I recruit in like I recruit in East Central Mississippi, and majority of the students that I recruit are black or are white. And so when I see a black student and like I can really tell, like, oh, I'm really interested. I'm like, let me pull you to the side, okay? Because I need to talk to you. Cause like if I can do it, like I went to Ole Miss for undergrad. I received my BA in English. I received my MA in Southern Studies and my MFA in documentary expression. And so I'm like, if I can do it, like I want you to come. And so it's always trying to connect with other black people. I see black people on like these conferences and on these panels. I'm like, let me DM you and let you know, like I'm here for you. If you want to talk, like you want to go get some lunch, I'm here. So yes, I love that.
and I appreciate you chiming in, Jay. Uh, but you're right, and I think that that's really good. What I was going to bring up though is it just reminded me of as you were talking. I thought about this recent episode, or at least this season. Does anybody watch This Is Us? Y'all don't watch This Is Us?
Huge fan.
I tried to do it at the first episode. I get too sad. I don't like it.
I'm not caught up. I'm
Love
not
it.
caught up, but
But well, Jamia, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to let you know this information. But at some point, Randall decides to go to therapy, and in this whole process of therapy, he is, as we know, Randall and his wife Beth are professionals, and I mean, successful black folks. I mean, extremely successful black folks. But he decides to go to therapy at some point, and I'm not gonna give too much details, Jamia, because I want you to catch up. I literally caught up over the break for real. I was just like watching episodes with my girlfriend. We just caught up, and we're like we only have to watch this week's episode, so we're caught up. We're good. But there was a moment where he's like, he tells his therapist like, I need to change therapists because I realize that there's some things I'm not talking to you about that I recognize me coming from the same culture is actually more helpful in that conversation. And some things I think we all know this. We all have experienced that moment where we're like, I could say something, but you won't get it. So I'm going to choose to just withhold that information. But I'm gonna move on from that because we can actually stay right there and have a whole
Yeah,
side conversation about that.
and before you move on, man, I just want to highlight, just how important um, I think this move that we've started to see black people go back to, understanding and realizing the need for community amongst black folks. And I think that that's a direct result of what we've seen, in this country and in this world the past 2 or 3 years. But it's something therapeutic about being around your own people, because we may not necessarily have the same background, but sometimes we have the same experiences, and it's just easy to understand. I saw that episode where Randall switched his therapist and said, "Look, I got to get a black therapist because I realized I can't open up to this." And man, that just resonated. I'm not gonna get into it, but I had some stuff going on in my own life, and it just resonated with me so deeply. It made me make some changes because I said, I got some people in some spaces they don't belong because they don't understand where I'm coming from and what I'm dealing with. Even Jesus
12
was
and the
touched with
3.
the feeling of our infirmities. Come on, somebody. I'm gonna mute.
Come on now. Preach.
Okay, we could really go somewhere there, but I'm gonna move the conversation because I'm trying to get revved up. Daryl pushing me, he pulling on me. But okay, but moving on. The next question I have is, and we're getting towards the end, but the next question, more specific, I have for future Dr. Winters, in these next few years, Jamia and Jay. So you all work in the educational space, and I think you all kind of touched on it. what are some of the complexities you see in education when addressing the issue of race? And even if we're not just talking about race in general, how are you seeing as a educator the type of nuance that is not being understood as it relates to your blackness? Because I think, somebody said this in in the last episode, is you have to bring your whole self to the experience. Yes, I'm extremely educated. I know how to navigate this space, but remember, I'm black. So, it, Jamia, you can go first, and then Dr. Mike.
Ooh, this is so loaded. I'm a slower processor. I take my time of processing, so you'll just have to hear my external processing before it's refined. Um, so the complexities in education when addressing the issues of race. Um,
Jamia, you can give the most simple answer
Talk
in
about
this
it.
present moment. I
Tell the
just,
truth.
It start with a sigh almost.
I think one of the most complex pieces of navigating, even coaching a diverse population of staff is that people sometimes don't understand the systems behind, racism. And they think that kids don't want to learn. Kids, can't learn, or kids aren't able to, they don't have the capacity to, and not really understanding how all of the systems for centuries have been working against, the communities in which we serve that enable some of the issues that we see. Um, I think a lot of my portion is just navigating and feeling empowered to have crucial conversations, even in the moment. When I hear someone say something that doesn't square well with me, doesn't sit well with me, or doesn't feel right, um, even if I don't have all of the language to address it appropriately, still addressing it. Hey, we actually don't say this, or we actually don't say that, and addressing whether a white staff member says it or whether a black staff member says it, because a lot of us as black people have internalized, oppression, internalized racism, and we are some of the most continued perpetuators of systems of oppression because we've been an oppressed people. And so having to educate, other people about the things while in the same time being educated and finding education. I just enrolled in a class, Restorative Justice Institute class of Oklahoma, just to get more language, just to get more knowledge around, I know something about the situation didn't feel right, didn't sit right, didn't sound right, but I didn't know why it didn't feel right, and I didn't know what to say. So just having more tools in the toolkit have been really, really helpful. But it is a complex topic, so I'm gonna throw it over to doctoral candidate Winters over there.
Thank you. Yeah, you brought up some very valid points, and as you were speaking, I was writing down some notes. But from my experience with complexities in education regarding race, I look at it in two different perspectives: one from the student's perspective, one from the educator's perspective. Because again, I have experience in both seats. So I'll start from the student's perspective. First of all, the educational structure that we have in public school systems across the country is not set up, is not designed for our students to win at all. And they talk a lot about college and career readiness, which leads me to my next point. Does the curriculum truly prepare the students to be uh, ready for any career? Does it truly prepare them to be ready to be um, high performing in anybody's college? Absolutely not. And again, I say that from sitting in both seats, from being a student as well as being a teacher delivering this curriculum each and every day. So as it relates to the curriculum, does it truly address the needs of the students? I mentioned earlier, I'm working on my own curriculum. It's titled You Deserve It, along with the book. And that curriculum is strictly social, emotional needs because teaching virtually, I got the opportunity to sit in every child's house. Normally in traditional school, every kid comes to your classroom, and you create the structure, you create the vibe. But virtually, it's like, no, I'm seeing everybody's household. I'm seeing everybody's background. I see that a lot of these kids are not truly in a place where they can actually learn. And so as I teach the curriculum that I had to teach, I'm like, these kids don't even need to learn this stuff right here. They need to know that they matter. They need to know that people care about them, that they're safe, they have a purpose, things like that. That's what's more beneficial to these kids right now. But again, in order to be in compliance, I do address the curriculum. But being a business person, entrepreneur, I see the need for this. So that's why I'm working on that on the other side. But back to the curriculum. Another question is, whose perspective is this curriculum truly given from? Like, if every school district purchases a specific type of curriculum, like, okay, it should reflect who is being delivered to. You would think that makes sense. But unfortunately, being on the front lines, I see that, most districts spend money on curriculums that, truly don't serve the kids just to be in compliance with, federal mandates. I could talk to you for a whole hour about the Every Student Succeeds Act and how, yeah, we ain't gonna talk about that right now. But the next thing I do want to talk about is the expectations for the learners, for the students. Um, I live in Memphis. I work in Memphis, Tennessee, and so right now we're trying to figure out a reopening plan for scholars to fully be back in school, and we're also trying to figure out whether or not they'll have to take the state test. And so I feel like that'll be a disadvantage for everybody involved for these students to have to take a standardized test, first of all from home, but they're not learning. It's not their fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just what we have right now is the best we can do, but it's not putting our kids in a position to succeed on anything. But that's my perspective from the kids side. In terms of the educator, being a black male educator, it's a small percentage of us, especially on the elementary school level. Um, so depending on what geographical region you're in, depending on what type of district you're in, based on the demographics, that will greatly affect your experience. So again, working in Shelby County, the demographics is majority black, and you have a small Latino, Hispanic population. But it's kind of like I hate to say it, but it's kind of like you have to really cover yourself. You have to watch out for yourself, and even other people who look like me or who are like me have a similar background. I would like to think that, okay, we can work together, we can network because we know the struggle. Unfortunately, not everybody has the same mindset, and so being a young black male educator is kind of like I had to make sure that I'm providing excellent service. I had to make sure that the quality of my instruction is top tier, and I'm also in compliance with everything else because I know, as educated as I am, somebody's watching me. Somebody doesn't like what I'm doing, and so I have to make sure that I got everything straight on my end, just to cover my tail. And unfortunately, it's some people that look like you that don't really like that, and so it's unfortunate that that's the reality. But again, that is the reality. So also understanding, having a level of maturity to say, okay, I realize that the people who I would like to network with might not want to network with me, but because I understand the whole grand scheme of things, I'm still going to maneuver in a way that we all can win, that we all can eat. And I think, as a black male educator, as a minority educator, period, this kind of mindset you have to have. Look out for yourself and look out for others as well. But that's all I have on that.
The lecture was amazing. Uh, and Jay,
Well, honey, I have a lot to unpack. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I definitely would like to, highlight those things. And it's so funny because I'm over here. As soon as you stated that question, I'm over here like, oh, let me write this down so I don't miss nothing. Um, so first of all, the issue that I have is um there are a lack of resources in rural and low income areas. And so I'm going to place this article in the chat for y'all. I don't know if y'all know, but Mississippi Today put out an article. 23,000 students have dropped out of public schools in Mississippi. And so, as a recruiter, the first thing that when we're having our meetings, I'm like, okay, what about these public schools? Like, what about the students in these rural areas? They're not getting the same resources. They're not getting the same access as, the students in these private schools, in these private academies. Like, for the most part, when we go to the for the most part, when we have recruited this year, in this pandemic, they've been mostly public schools. And I'm like, okay, what about students in the public schools? Um, like they want to go to college too. Like, they need these same resources. And so, like, that has been a major issue for me. It's like it's almost like my colleagues don't care. And that frustrates me, because I want to make sure that everybody has that same access. um as a Black admissions counselor, I've gone into private schools, or just even like regular public schools, and it's always, oh, I didn't know Ole Miss had Black admissions counselors. So, knowing me, you like, well, I'm like, well, look, I'm here. So either we gonna get to know each other, you know what I'm saying, or you don't have to send your students to Ole Miss, but you're going to deprive them of that opportunity to come to a university and get a good education. We have university vehicles, and I live in Flowood, Mississippi, in Rankin County, and I literally see people like looking in my car as I'm driving, like, is she supposed to be driving this car? And I'm like, baby, listen, if I don't want this, if I did not need the key to this car, I wouldn't have it. Okay. I got it because I work here. Okay. So it's just funny because I see people like looking in the car, in the vehicle, like, she ain't supposed to be driving this car. Well, baby, I am. Another thing, understanding that Zoom does not work for everyone. Every student cannot learn virtually. And I have to explain that to my colleagues. It's like they get upset when we're meeting with schools. So what we do is we meet with schools, and like they'll just have their students log on, and it's just like, well, only one student logged on. I'll take that one student and I'm gonna give them a presentation like it's 50 people on the call. Like, I cannot get upset about that. Like, everybody is experiencing a different pandemic right now. It's hard. Everybody cannot learn online. Everybody cannot learn virtually. So one thing, I talked to some educators in JPS, and it's like they're thinking about failing students next year if they don't log on. And it's just like, do y'all not realize some of these people can't log on because they don't have Wi-Fi? Like, that's not their fault. And that frustrates me because it's like y'all aren't like thinking about this. It's very frustrating. The language that my colleagues use to recruit is very important. And I've always stressed that. One thing that my director and the assistant director, they always state people of color. And I'm like, y'all can't go into North Panola and say, well, we want people of color to come to the University of Mississippi. Because that to them sounds like we want the colored people to come up here to Ole Miss. And I'm like, you have to be specific in how you recruit and how you talk to these people. And so I had that conversation with them, and y'all, my assistant director was literally like, well, I just feel more comfortable saying that. And I was like, it ain't about you. Like, it's about the students. You cannot go to a student and say person of color if they're not comfortable with it. Like, you are trying to recruit that student. They have to pay to come here, so they need to feel comfortable. So, just learning that language, Black or African American versus people of color. I tell people all day, I'm Black. a person of color. You know what I'm saying? Like in certain situations, if you're talking about Hispanics and Black people, then you can put it together. But when you're talking about Black issues, that person is Black. Okay. So, you know, those are some of the things that I stress, some of the things that I deal with. And yeah, I just had to write this down. As you can see, I don't have a poker face. When, you know, something is said, I'm gonna be like, okay, I do this in my meetings with Ole Miss. I am who I am. So I appreciate y'all for accepting me today. So yes.
Look, Jay, I've known you all my life. I love the fact that you keep that same energy every time. It never
I have
fails.
to. I have to.
It never fails. So I have one more question for Darrell, and then I'll ask you two more questions. Okay. So we got a few more, and I'm gonna try to get it out real quick. But really quickly, Darrell. So you as an entrepreneur, what is it like for you navigating business and your Blackness? And you kind of told us a story about that earlier, but how do you navigate that, and how do you really bring that into the fold?
Yeah. Um, if 2020 taught me one thing, it taught me that, you know, I hate to use a cliche here, but blackness really is a superpower, and uh, people need black people, regardless of what space you're in, entrepreneurship, education, higher ed, whatever. They need black people to speak to issues that we are currently facing, that we currently see in society, and I equated much to to prophetic voices we've seen in scripture. I think God is positioned, especially from what I see, those of us on this call as prophetic voices in our spaces. And so, um, when you talk about balance, it's it's not hard to balance, because I've come to accept that I'm in this space to be exactly who I am. I'm sorry, I just saw a note to speak up. I'm in this space to be exactly who I am, and so when I walk through that door, when I walk in that boardroom, or when I walk in that meeting room, I'm not compromising or playing politics or respectability to get a contract. What you see is what you're going to get, and if you want me at the table, you want my voice. If you don't want my voice, you don't want me at the table. So that's how I'm approaching it.
Great answer. So one thing I think is extremely important that we all are experiencing and should be doing is paying it forward. So just give me one thing that you're doing currently or plan to do this year uh, to pay it forward, like really position somebody else for an opportunity, really uh, uh, help people move forward. So Dr. Moore, you can go first.
Sure, I am definitely doing so through mentorship. So I mentor a lot through my church and on the side, just people who want to be therapists, people who reach out to me. I am on the licensed marriage and therapy board for North Carolina, and so people who reach out to me through the board, I'll give mentorship hours to for free at times. And then I will say, so I have a program called Pray, Plan, Prosper. It's a workshop, and that's definitely a way to pay it forward. Darrell spoke about prophetic voices. It's exactly what it is prophetic planning, and really getting into the word, getting into, the scripture, and really figuring out what God is asking you to do next. And so I pay it forward that way as well. Just reaching back and bringing people with me. We don't want to be up here by ourselves, do we? So I'm always, seeking to reach back and ensure that I'm giving people what they need, and showing up to do my assignments daily.
Dr. Winters.
Yes, sir. Could you make sure I respond correctly? I got like two things of notes over here. What was the last prompt?
My last question was, how are you paying it forward? Like, what are the ways in which you are specifically paying it forward? Either you currently have been doing this, or you plan on doing this, and as quickly as possible.
Gotcha. Yeah. So one way that I pay it forward is just by spending time with young men at the schools that I work at. Um, I have a mentoring program called Gentlemen of Leadership and Development, where I meet with them maybe once or twice a month on a Saturday, go over some academic skills, let them play basketball or football for a little bit, and just talk to them about some character development. Just basically mentoring them, being present, being active, taking the places, doing things with them, things that I enjoyed doing when I was growing up, and things that I wish I had more of growing up. Also, I'm looking forward to expanding that virtually this year, and I also do that work in my fraternity, Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, through Project Alpha initiative is one of our national projects, and so through that, not only do I work with the kids in my school, but it opens the door for me to work with kids from various schools in the community, in the region, in the state, just to kind of let them know, hey, these are some potential risks out here. These are some ways you can protect yourself. These are ways you can set yourself up for success. And that's how I look forward to making an impact, paying it forward.
Jamia.
Yes, I've done some informal mentorship with just a couple of students and a couple of young people, but I've been wanting to expand my reach more. So I really really appreciate this question, Lee, and I'm excited to hear what I've heard because I'm really trying to get some ideas on how to have a more formalized process of mentoring or giving back, and so I'm also excited to hear from Jay and Daryl as well.
Darrell.
Yeah, so can you hear me this time? Okay, cool. I'm actually mentoring. I mentor directly young men, especially who just need guidance. They may or may not be trying to take the same route I've taken professionally, but they're trying to make decisions. Beyond that, I spent some time in Detroit, and while there was, working for myself full time, working around other entrepreneurs, and I realized or learned about this culture amongst black entrepreneurs there, that when they submitted proposals for contracts, they wrote each other into the proposals, meaning that if this may be beyond my scope of work, I have a friend who has a business that can do this. What God enabled me to be able to do last year was pay people, provide opportunities for people, and that's a great feeling. That's a great feeling. It's dope to me to be able to send people money to do work and to help them scale their business, and just reaching back to say, I've been where you are. I know what it's like to start off. I kind of bootstrapped it and did it on my own. Nobody really helped me, but because I know you can do this, I'm going to open this door and provide this opportunity for you. And while you're on the road with me, while you're working with me, hopefully you can make your own connections to help boost your business as well. So that's what I'm all about, creating other opportunities for people, and that's how I'm trying to give back.
And Jay.
So I've heard a lot about guidance and mentorship, and I love that. So one thing for me, in the way that I've been paying it forward and still is honestly giving more attention to young Black folks, specifically in Mississippi, and assuring them like that it's okay to be yourself. Like do not feel like that you have to assimilate for other people, because once you assimilate, like you can't go back. One thing that I learned my first year of graduate school, like people use like bigger words than me. And I was like, well, hold on now. Like, let me start, learning, expanding my vocabulary. And I was just like, you know what? I don't have to talk differently, for someone else. And then when I realized I just started being myself, like people love what I did. They love my work. And so I tell students all the time, like be yourself. Like don't feel like you have to assimilate to a certain culture to benefit yourself. Like be yourself. And just continuing that mentorship and that guidance. And honestly, if I can be a little selfish, like I'm paying it forward to myself. Because in 2020, like I gave a lot of myself to other people. And I was just like, you know what? 2021 is the year of selfishness. If I say I can't do it, I'm not doing it. So it's just, more pedicures, more massages, and even sometimes that, the massage and the pedicure is not enough. Just being in my own space and just being alone sometimes, just being to myself is good enough.
That's great. So we're kind of pushing for time, but because I still have to get some information to you guys. But really quickly, it doesn't matter what order you guys go in. I have a fun question which I always ask. What song would you use to describe yourself and why?
I've been getting to the money. Everybody mad.
You gotta give me why, Darrell.
Oh, why? No, man. So I'm just, that's kind of one of my hype songs when I'm headed to do a project or something like that. It just gives me this level of focus, and I'm not getting to the money in a selfish way or making it an idol or anything like that. But I believe I've been anointed and called to do what I do. I've been anointed and called to make money. I've been anointed and called to provide opportunities, and so I'm just walking out my door every day with a level of focus to achieve what I set out to do that day. So that's why I went with that one. And I'm talking about the OT Genesis version, not the Beyonce version. I like both, but I like OT.
I would say, and it's the first thing that popped in my head, but it's Jill Scott, Living My Life Like It's Golden. So I've gotten in a place where I'm just walking in my purpose and I'm not worried about what anyone has to say about it. I love myself and I love everything that God is doing in my life. So I'm just living my life like it's golden. I remember being in a place where I felt like people would call me like #save, or like things that would really, really make me feel rejected. I'm like, wait a minute. No, I'm good. I can do everything that God has called me to do and still be myself and live my life. So that's where I am now.
Cool. I'll go. I love Brent Fayez, and I think in this season, I would say the song "Been Away" by Brent Fayez describes, kind of where I'm at, because I've just really been separating myself just to get focused on, what I'm doing and where I'm trying to take it. So just really getting focused on the project, getting focused on the business, and getting the paper straight, like you said in the song. So.
Okay, don't judge me, y'all, but Nuck If You Buck, okay? That's my hype song. I'm a Delta. I love to stroll to that song. Some not physically, but some people want to nuck. I'ma speak, I'ma say my piece, So that's my hype song. So hey, Nuck If You Buck for me.
And I'm gonna just ooh for the other sorors who might be listening. Ooh.
I think Bishop Bob Marley sang it best when he said, "Don't worry about a thing, whoa, 'cause every little thing is gonna be all right."
Come on now.
And I chose that song because that's where I'm at. Like, I just feel like with everything going on crazy, God is saying, just, come unto me, all you are weary. I will give you rest. Everything's going to be all right. So.
Yes, Lord.
Well, thank you all for your time. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm super excited, and I hope everybody's impacted and inspired by each other, but this will really impact some significant people. So thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe today on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. To get more information about me and what I'm doing, email me at scottconsultations@gmail.com or follow me on social media on Twitter and especially Instagram at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. Thank you for watching this week's episode. I really appreciate it. Much love, and let's get started.